September 21st, 1960 at night. The back room behind the bar is packed too tight for comfort. One bulb hangs over the table, buzzing like it's tired of being awake. Bumpy Johnson stands near the wall, hat low, coat buttoned, looking like he's got all night. Frank Lucas is 3 feet away, smiling like this is just business, like he didn't bring the storm with him. The men from outside step in next. White faces, hard eyes, cheap coats. They move like they've been promised something they didn't earn. One of them speaks first. 50,000, he says, like he's reading a receipt. We're here to collect. Nobody in Harlem talks like that. Not in Harlem, not in a room this small. Bumpy doesn't flinch. His eyes slide across them once, calm and measuring. The lead man glances at Frank before he takes another step. It's quick, almost nothing, but Frank answers it with a small nod. That nod is the whole story. Bumpy's head turns just enough to look at Frank. His voice stays low, even. You told them where to stand, Bumpy says. Frank's smile tightens at the corners. Don't do this, he whispers. Not here. Bumpy looks past him at the hunters. The man with the coil in his hand shifts his grip, proud of it, like he wants the room to remember his face. Bumpy lifts his hand slowly, like he's giving them what they came for. But here's the thing, Bumpy isn't surrendering. He's buying a second. The bulb flickers once. The room holds its breath. And what happens next? Bumpy drags the chair sideways with his heel. The table slams, bodies bump together, and the whole plan collapses in the space of one heartbeat. Voices jump. A shot cracks into plaster. Men shove the wrong direction. The doorway jams like a cork. Bumpy moves low and fast, using the room against them. Seconds later, one of the outsiders is left standing, shaking, staring at Bumpy like he just walked into the wrong city. Bumpy leans in close enough for the man to smell his coat. You're gonna walk out, Bumpy says. You're gonna tell them what you saw. The man nods hard, too scared to speak. Frank stays frozen by the door, face empty now, watching the room he set up turn on him. What nobody knew, this wasn't the first time Bumpy heard about the $50,000. He'd known days before. He'd heard the whispers. He'd watched who repeated them. And in those days, Bumpy didn't just prepare to survive. He prepared to make sure the betrayer couldn't hide after. September 18th, 19602, 18 inches the afternoon. The meeting isn't in Harlem. It never is. A private room downtown, curtains drawn, smoke sitting in the air like a second ceiling, the kind of place where every man speaks like he owns silence. Some say Frank Costello's name is the first one mentioned. Others say it's Carlo Gambino who calls the room to order. Either way, the message is the same. Harlem is getting in the way. A glass clinks once. A cigar gets lit slow. A man leans back like time belongs to him. One man, a voice says. One neighborhood. Another voice answers calm. He's not a neighborhood, he's a lock. Somebody laughs under their breath. Locks get picked. And that's the mistake, because they keep talking about Harlem like it's a business deal. A hand slides a folded paper across the table. A simple name written clean. Bumpy Johnson. The room stays quiet for a beat, not because they're scared of him, but because everybody respects what he represents. Power that doesn't come from permission. A man speaks again. We've sent people. Another answers. They didn't come back right. A third voice cuts in, colder. Then stop sending strangers into his house. Make him open the door himself. A pause. Then the real question lands. Who's close enough? Nobody says it right away. That's how you know the name matters. Finally, someone speaks like they're reading a verdict. Frank Lucas. That name changes the temperature. Not because Frank is feared. Because Frank is positioned. He's inside. He can touch the hallway light switch. He can decide which door is unlocked. A man at the table taps ash into a tray and says it flat. What's the number? 50,000, another answers. Clean. And the muscle? Someone asks. Nobody wants Italians stepping into Harlem for this. Too loud, too permanent, too much blowback. So, they pick men who don't understand consequences. Men who'll do it for money and call it pride afterward. The clan will take it, a voice says. They're hungry. They'll travel. But they don't move blind, another voice warns. They'll need a map. A chair shifts. A ring taps the table once. The room decides without voting. They'll get the map, someone says. And just like that, the plan isn't about killing Bumpy. It's about proving Harlem can be entered. Because once one outsider walks in and gets paid, more will follow. September 19th, 19609, 6 inches the morning. Harlem wakes up acting like it's fine. Store gates roll up. Radios hum behind window glass. Men stand on corners like they always do, hands in pockets, eyes half-lidded. But the street is watching today. Every car that slows gets counted. Every new face gets remembered. Bumpy walks through it like none of that matters. Hat low, coat clean, steps even. He stops in front of a number spot and doesn't go in right away. He just stands there, listening to the block breathe. A kid runs past and stares too long. A man on the stoop turns his head away too fast. A curtain shifts upstairs like somebody's checking if he's alone. Bumpy goes inside. The room is small, warm, full of paper and sweat. Bills stacked in clean towers under a bare bulb. A fan ticks in the corner like it's keeping time. Two men count money without speaking. A third man watches them like he's trying to read their faces. Bumpy takes the chair at the end of the table, steady and quiet. A runner starts talking the second Bumpy sits down. Too fast, too eager. They saying wild things out there, the runner says. People saying your name like it's a raffle. Bumpy lets him talk. Then he lifts his hand slightly, and the runner stops mid-sentence like he got yanked by a leash. Bumpy's voice stays flat. Who said it to you? The runner blinks hard. Everybody, he says. It's all over. Bumpy leans back just enough to look comfortable. His eyes don't soften. Not everybody, Bumpy says. Give me a name. That's the test. Simple, clean, no threat in it at all. The runner hesitates too long. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. Finally, he says it. Frank told me to keep you informed. Bumpy nods once like it's helpful, like it's a good answer. But here's the thing, Bumpy already asked the same question in another room 2 hours ago. And he got a different answer there. So now, he's not collecting information. He's collecting patterns. Bumpy stands up slow and straightens his cuff. Keep counting, he tells them, and keep your mouths shut. He walks out like the conversation never touched him. Outside, the block stays quiet. But Bumpy feels it now, clear as a hand on his shoulder. Somebody is guiding this bounty through Harlem, and whoever's guiding it is close enough to smile in his face. September 20th, 19606, 31 inches the evening. Frank Lucas comes into the club like he owns the air. His suit is pressed, his shoes are polished, his hair is sharp. He moves like a man who learned early that control is louder than shouting. The guard at the door nods him through without a word. Frank doesn't even look at the crowd. He heads straight for the back office like the hallway belongs to him. Bumpy is waiting inside, sitting under a dim lamp with his hands folded. A glass sits on the desk untouched. The room smells like smoke and money. Frank smiles small and closes the door behind him. They talking crazy out there, Frank says. His voice is warm, loyal. I'm calming it down. Bumpy doesn't answer right away. He watches Frank's hands, because hands always tell the truth first. Frank moves closer, speaking smooth. Couple out-of-town boys sniffing around, Frank says. Real ugly types. They think Harlem's easy. Bumpy finally speaks, quiet. How you know? Frank doesn't hesitate. That's the problem. I got people, Frank says, same way you got people. And that's the mistake because Frank says it like it's equal, like their networks are the same. Bumpy keeps his face still. He lets Frank keep building his own rope. Frank leans forward, lowering his voice like he's protecting Bumpy from the street. We do a sit-down, Frank says. We show we ain't scared. We cut it off clean. Bumpy's eyes stay locked on him. Calm, measuring. Where? Bumpy asks. Frank answers fast. Behind the bar on 142nd, quiet spot, tight entrance, easy to control. He says, tight entrance, like he already pictured bodies filling it. Bumpy nods slowly like he's considering. Then he says one word, said it. Frank relaxes like he won something. He stands, adjusts his jacket, and turns for the door. Before he leaves, he looks back with that same calm smile, the loyal one. You can trust me, Frank says. Bumpy doesn't smile back. He just watches Frank walk out. Because trust isn't a feeling to Bumpy Johnson. It's a measurement. And Frank is starting to come up short. September 21st, 1969:14 at night. The call doesn't come through a soldier. It comes through a woman. Her voice is tight, like she's trying not to shake. She doesn't waste words, because fear makes people honest. "They got my boy," she says. "They said you'll come." Bumpy doesn't ask who. He doesn't ask where. He already knows what this is. Bait. He stands up from his chair without touching the drink in front of him. The room around him feels normal, but the air doesn't. A man by the door stops breathing for a second. Someone in the hallway turns away too fast. Even the music outside sounds like it's keeping its distance. Bumpy puts on his coat slow, like he's dressing for church. Frank is waiting near the car, leaning against the hood like he's been there all day. Clean suit, calm face, loyal posture. "You shouldn't go alone," Frank says. Bumpy looks at him once, long enough to make Frank hold the smile. "I ain't alone," Bumpy answers, and slides into the back seat. The driver starts moving before the door is fully shut, like he's afraid of staying still too long. Frank rides up front, talking soft like he's guiding a funeral. "They say the Klan's sniffing around," Frank says. "They're not smart, but they're hungry." Bumpy doesn't answer. He watches the street through the glass. The route Frank picks isn't the fast one. It's side streets, quiet turns, the kind of drive you take when you want to be seen by specific people. Bumpy catches it immediately. A car tailing them. A second car, farther back. Then the first one peels off. Frank pretends not to notice. He keeps talking, filling space. "You stay calm," Frank says. "We walk in, we talk, we walk out." But here's the thing, Frank keeps saying "we" like he's part of the solution. The car stops behind a bar on 142nd, one narrow door, one weak light above it flickering like it's tired. Frank turns and points. "Right there, quick." Bumpy steps out and stares at that doorway for a beat. The light is on. It shouldn't be. And Bumpy already knows the difference between a bad sign and a planned one. September 21st, 1960:10, 4 at night. Inside, the back room smells like old smoke and stale liquor. One bulb hangs from a wire, buzzing low. The space is tight. The table is too clean. The water glass is placed like a prop. Bumpy steps in slow, shoulders relaxed like he's just there to listen. Frank follows behind him, too comfortable in a room he claims is unknown. "They said they'd be here," Frank whispers, like he's helping. Bumpy doesn't look at him right away. He looks at the corners first, then the hallway, then the floor near the doorway, where scuff marks should be if a nervous man paced. There are none. Bumpy stops at the table and looks at the empty chair across from him. "No, boy," Bumpy says. His voice stays flat. Frank's jaw tightens for a second. "They holding him back," Frank says. "They want you to sit first." Too smooth. Bumpy pulls out a small roll of bills and sets it on the table slow, like he's paying for information. The paper lands soft. Frank's eyes go straight to the hallway like the money is a bell. Bumpy catches it. "Who back there?" Bumpy asks. Frank laughs once, trying to make it light. "Nobody," he says. "It's just talk." Bumpy tilts his head slightly. "Talk don't hide," Bumpy answers. The bulb flickers once. Not random, not weak wiring. A clean blink like a signal. And that's the mistake, because Frank doesn't react like a man surprised by it. He reacts like a man waiting for it. Bumpy takes one step back from the table, giving himself space without showing fear. Frank shifts toward the exit without realizing he's doing it. Bumpy looks at him, calm and cold. "You sweating, Frank," Bumpy says softly, for a man who said this was clean. Frank forces a smile, but his eyes don't match it. From the hallway, boots scrape. Then another scrape. Then silence. The room tightens like a hand closing. And Bumpy doesn't reach for a gun. He just watches Frank. Because the truth is about to walk out of that hallway. September 21st, 1960:10 at night. The bulb flickers again, then steadies. The room holds still like it's waiting for a cue. Bumpy keeps his hands low and his face calm. Frank stands a step behind him, half turned toward the door like he's already decided where he'll run. A voice comes from the hallway, smiling. That him? Another voice answers. Close. That's him. Men step into the light. Not locals. Not even close. Pale faces, hard eyes, cheap coats that don't belong in Harlem. They move like they've been promised a clean payday. The lead man speaks like he's proud of himself. 50,000, he says. We here to collect. Bumpy looks at them once, slow and steady, like he's counting what they don't understand. You in the wrong neighborhood, Bumpy says. The lead man laughs. We ain't wrong. We got directions. He takes a step forward. And before he takes the second step, he glances at Frank. Quick, automatic, like checking a supervisor. Frank gives him a small nod. That nod is the whole truth. Bumpy turns his head slightly toward Frank, voice still quiet. You told them where to stand, Bumpy says. Frank's smile tightens. Don't do this, he whispers. Not here. Bumpy looks back at the men. One of them carries a coil in his hand like he brought it for a show. Another one keeps patting his pocket like he's making sure something is still there. Bumpy lifts his hand slowly. Not panic, not fear, a controlled motion like he's choosing the moment. But here's the thing. Bumpy isn't surrendering. He's setting the angle. The lead man steps closer, greedy now. The others crowd behind him. The doorway tightens with bodies. No space, no clean exit. Bumpy shifts his weight and drags the chair sideways with his heel. The wood scrapes loud. The lead man stumbles. The line breaks for half a second. That half second is enough. Bumpy slams the table forward into the crowd, not to hurt them, to jam them. The bulb swings wildly, throwing shadows across faces. Confusion hits fast when men can't see straight. A shot cracks into plaster. The room erupts. Men shove the wrong direction. Someone trips over the chair. The doorway jams like a cork, bodies pressed tight and angry. Bumpy drops low and moves through the gaps like he's done it 100 times. He doesn't chase the loudest man. He moves toward the weakest one, the one blocking the exit, the one creating the bottleneck. 2 men go down hard. Another crashes into the wall and stays there. Someone swings and hits his own man by mistake. Frank freezes by the door, eyes wide now, watching his plan collapse. Bumpy snaps a look at him. Stay right there. Frank's face drains. He doesn't move. He can't. Not without proving everything. Seconds later, the noise dies. One outsider is left upright, shaking, eyes wild, staring at Bumpy like he just walked into a rule he didn't know existed. Bumpy steps, close enough to make the man look up. You're gonna walk out, Bumpy says. You're gonna tell them what you saw. The man nods fast, too scared to speak. Bumpy turns his head toward Frank one last time, voice low. We ain't done. Frank doesn't answer. He just watches Bumpy like he's seeing him for the first time. September 21st, 1000. 960-1041 at night. Harlem doesn't call police for this. Harlem handles it. The back room is quiet except for the bulb still swinging, buzzing like it refuses to settle down. Chairs are crooked. The table is shoved off center. The air smells burned and stale. Men move fast and silent, like they practiced this in their sleep. A door gets pulled shut. A lock turns once. Someone wipes the handle clean like it never got touched. Bumpy stands in the doorway, hat back on, coat still straight, looking like the room didn't even raise his pulse. Frank is gone. He vanished the second the sound got loud, like his loyalty had a timer on it. Bumpy doesn't chase him. Not tonight. Not yet. He looks at the one man he allowed to walk out alive. The survivor sits against the wall, shaking, eyes stuck wide like they might never close again. Bumpy crouches in front of him, calm and close, voice almost gentle. You remember who sent you here? Bumpy asks. The man nods too fast. Yeah, he whispers. Yeah. Bumpy reaches into his pocket and pulls out a matchbook. Plain, cheap, dry. He places it in the man's hand like it's a badge. Take that, Bumpy says. You're gonna give it back. The man stares at it, confused. Bumpy keeps his voice flat. You gonna walk straight, he says. You gonna talk clear. You gonna tell him, Harlem don't pay bounties. Harlem collects. The survivor swallows hard and nods again. Outside, the street stays quiet, too quiet, like every window is listening without moving. Bumpy stands up slow and looks out into the night. This part matters more than the fight, because now comes the message. And the message is what makes men think twice the next time somebody tries to buy a doorway into Harlem. September 22nd, 19608, 12 inches the morning. The survivor walks like his legs don't trust the ground anymore. His clothes are wrinkled, his face is marked up. He keeps one hand closed tight like he's afraid of losing what's inside it. The matchbook. Bumpy's men don't escort him all the way. They don't need to. Harlem has ways of making sure a man stays on his path. He turns a corner and sees the building Frank uses when he wants privacy. Clean brick, quiet street, the kind of place that tries to look invisible. The survivor hesitates on the sidewalk. A car passes slow. A window shade moves. A man in a doorway watches him. Nobody speaks. Everybody knows. He keeps walking. He reaches the back entrance and knocks. One knock. A pause. Then two more. The door opens a crack, and a pair of eyes looks him up and down like he's a problem. "Who sent you?" the man asks. The survivor swallows. "Bumpy." The door opens wider. Inside, Frank Lucas stands in a pressed shirt like the night never happened. Hair sharp, face clean. He looks calm until his eyes land on the survivor. Frank's jaw tightens. "What is this?" he asks. The survivor lifts his hand slowly and opens his fist. The matchbook sits there like a stamp. Frank takes it between two fingers like he doesn't want it touching him. He studies it for a second, and his face hardens. Then a voice comes from behind the survivor, calm and close. "Bumpy." He's standing in the hallway like he belongs there. Hat low, coat buttoned, eyes flat. Frank turns slow. "Bumpy," Frank says, trying to keep his voice smooth. "You really walked in here." Bumpy doesn't smile. He steps closer, just enough to tighten the air in the room. The survivor backs away without being told, like instinct is keeping him alive. Bumpy looks at Frank for a long moment, quiet enough to make the walls feel it. Then Bumpy speaks one line, cold, law-like, final. "You don't sell Harlem and live here." Frank's face locks. He doesn't blow up. He doesn't deny it. He can't, not with the survivor standing there as proof. He swallows once and forces the words out. "This is bigger than you," Frank says. Bumpy nods slightly, like he expected that. "It don't get bigger than home," Bumpy answers. He turns away like the conversation is over, because for him, it is. As he reaches the doorway, he stops just long enough to add one more thing, quiet and precise. "You used outsiders," Bumpy says. "Now you live like one." Then he walks out. Frank stays still, holding the matchbook like it's a weight he can't put down. The survivor slips out behind Bumpy, and the door closes soft. Inside, Frank doesn't move for a long time. Because he just learned something the $50,000 couldn't buy. Harlem doesn't bend. And Bumpy Johnson doesn't miss. September 22nd, 1960 3 at night. Some people swear it happened exactly like that. Others say the story got cleaned up the way Harlem always cleans things up, quiet, fast, and with no extra details. But the parts that matter don't change. A bounty gets named. A right hand turns sideways. Outsiders step in too bold. A room goes quiet. One man walks out shaking. A message gets delivered. Bumpy doesn't call reporters. He doesn't make speeches on street corners. He doesn't need crowds to know his rules. His rules live in what happens to the men who test them. That's why Harlem stays Harlem. Because Harlem isn't a market. It's territory. And territory doesn't get sold by men who live inside it. If you're still here, subscribe, because these stories don't end when the lights go off. And I want you to answer this one in the comments. If you were Bumpy, do you end Frank that same night? Or do you let him walk, just to see who follows him next?